GV, in the last year, there has been an enormous amount of focus on talent management, particularly in Asia. How have you found this a challenge within your own SSC?
It's interesting. Talent management is a challenge in certain aspects of business. In terms of, our experience has been that if we go ahead and hire people who are more of what we call as vanilla resources to do some basic activities like, accounts payable type of work or pure play transaction processing, we haven't necessarily in India found any challenge in terms of recruiting those people and getting them on board. But more and more as we move up on the value chain, what we are focusing upon is getting people who are much more of niche resources. So these are people with, say, for example, medical background, or these are people with investment accounting type of background. And that's where we realized that it's a bit more of a challenge in terms of trying to get these resources on board. But having said that, I think for us it's more about how we manage the expectations of our various clients in terms of the amount of time we'll take to get these people on board and the amount of time we'll take to induct them and get them going as far as the process is concerned. So I think it is a bit of a challenge to get these resources, but I think we can have a good workaround if our expectations is very clear with our clients that we'll take a longer period of time to get these people on board as compared to some of the conventional resources as such.
Now, many people have the preconception that the SSO industry is one of process-driven, monotonous work. How would you dispute this?
I think the SSONs and the shared services typically have evolved over a period of time. We obviously started off being very, very process-centric because the whole objective of having a shared services was to make sure that you give your processes which are run exactly the way you want them to run. And the basic parameters were to track the operational KPIs around quality and turnaround time and other things. But I think over a period of time now, more and more mature shared services are moving on in terms of trying to look at adding more value and trying to get much more business and domain expertise to see how to run about their businesses basically. So I think that shift is happening where it's no longer about the process, which obviously are the core in its own way, but it's more about trying to work with our clients, trying to understand what their business priorities are, and hopefully moving up more as a trusted advisor, as we call it in AXA parlor, to actually work with them hand in hand in terms of improving their business KPIs. And that business KPIs can be around improving the speed of market or improving in terms of anything to do with claims cost management and other related stuff or so. So I would say that this perception that shared services are all only about process is a bit of a misconception, a bit of an outdated stuff according to me. I think we are growing much beyond processes to become effective business partners. But a lot depends on the respective shared services in terms of how they embark on this journey.
Very interesting. Now, this year more than ever, we have found more people wanting to talk about customer within the shared services industry. Why do you think that is, and why do you think what kind of value do shared services provide?
So firstly, Darwin, I'll say that I'm very, very pleased that more and more people are talking about customers. It was pretty interesting. I remember my journey in the BPO shared services space about 12, 13 years back, and wherein people used to hardly talk about customers. And having come from a telecom background, I was very surprised because you normally tend to put customer in the middle of everything which you end up doing. I think the reason behind that was that it was predominantly very specific to process orientation, that people were only looking at the process and not talking so much about the customer's part in terms of understanding what these customers are requiring and what is actually their business priorities. So I think I'm very pleased about the fact that more and more customers are, more and more shared services are talking about the customers. I feel the reason they are doing that is because of the fact that they do realize that if they need to be competitive and if they need to keep the strategic advantage as a shared services, then they need to get closer to our customers to understand what their business requirements are, to understand what their key priorities at the marketplace is, so that the shared services becomes more like a facilitator and an enabler in this particular entire process of the customers reaching to their end goals or so. So I think that entire shift in the mindset where one wants to work more as a trusted partner with our customers is actually bringing this customer discussion much more now into the forefront than what it has been in the past. And I think this trend is going to continue. And I would reckon that shared services which are talking more about the customers and aligning with them will sustain themselves in the longer run as compared to the ones which probably all are only process oriented might actually eventually perish over a period of time.
Very interesting insight. Now, one of the key themes this year was creating an operation structure that is agile to the needs of the company. In your own organization, how has your firm done this?
I think it's a key. It's a key to be organized in a way that we are able to, one, get closer to customers in terms of having a right type of governance and to the critical stakeholders on the customer side. Plus, at the same time, use the unique advantage, which I think all shared services have, of supporting more than one entity or more than one customer. So, from an AXA perspective, we at AXA Business Services embarked on this journey called the Centers of Excellence. This was about 3 years back, where what we did is we organized ourselves by the major lines of businesses. So being an insurance back office center, for us it was more about supporting lines of businesses like life insurance, property and casualty, healthcare, finance and accounting, asset management, analytics and so on. And I think by virtue of organizing ourselves by these centers of excellence, or COEs as we call them, actually gave us a lot of advantages. Firstly, we were able to actually get closer to our customers because every COE was given the mandate that your job is not only about running the day-to-day operations, but your job is about understanding the business. And I think a lot of shared services, including us, did not focus so much around the business understanding till a few years back. So this particular structure enabled us to have respective people focusing on one line of business and getting a better domain expertise on that particular front. At the same time, it enabled us to actually get better economies of scale because many a times in a typical shared services environment, you have your operating teams and then you have all your enabling functions, be it functions like HR, finance, MIS and others supporting them. And many a times when you're not organized properly, you could have actually a lot of these entity or departments working as silos. So this model enabled us to get everybody together and actually draw certain convergence and economies of scale. I think the third advantage which we typically saw was that because of the fact that we had one person responsible for one line of business or center of excellence, we could go back to our partners and say, why do you do business in a particular manner? So I'll just give you an example. We went to one of our life insurance companies which we support and said that, the way you capture the customer information is a bit outdated because we are supporting 3 more entities and 3 more companies. And the way they capture it is very, very different. It looks to be much more sleeker and much more efficient as compared to the way you go about doing it. And that particular input which we provided became very, very beneficial for this company to undergo certain changes. So they didn't have to go outside, do some big time benchmarking to get those inputs. They actually could get those inputs from the shared services. So I think organizing the shared services in an efficient manner actually provides you that advantage to look at these opportunities of improving on value and going back and discussing that. And I think the last, according to me, was on the employees part, which was very critical, because by virtue of showing them that we are not looking at only processes, but organizing ourselves by an agile center of excellence model, people saw a career development and a logical career progression for them. So we really saw a big impact in terms of our attrition levels going down and our employee engagement scores going up. So I would say that it's imperative, depending on the line of businesses you are in, that every shared services looks at reorganizing itself and sees how they can actually structure themselves so that they're closer to the customer as such.